Welcome to the Industry Experts Panel at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. My name is Michelle Holliday. Today, we are excited to be welcoming back to the show Mr. William Binney. Bill is a former top official with United States National Security Agency. By profession, he is an expert mathematician. To this day, Bill Binney carries the reputation of being the best hacker that the NSA has ever known. Bill is the man who actually created the spying programs that are still utilized today by the NSA. It's very important for everyone to understand that those programs were created in order to spy on foreign enemy governments. They were never intended to be used to be spying upon American citizens. And there is no one on the planet who knows these programs better than Mr. Bill Binney, and we are so honored to have him with us today. Bill, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you. It's good to be back with you.
We are thrilled to have you here. We're going to start off, Bill, today with the very unique worldwide situation we have with the coronavirus. From your vantage point, as you step back and look at the big picture, from this situation, how has it changed or impacted the surveillance communities?
Actually, it really hasn't done anything to the community except reduce the amount of work they have to do. Because there's not as much moving around. You don't have to follow as many people. They're not as active as they used to be. So businesses aren't doing as much as they used to be. So it's less information, so it's less work.
That's very interesting. We all know that the NSA has the power to monitor all communications. And now we know that it indeed does. So this brings the question to mind, Bill, why is it so challenging to pinpoint exactly where this virus came from?
Actually, it's really a quandary to me why they can't do that. I think they should have the information, all the necessary information to back it up and find out where the people who originally had it, where they came from, and where they traveled from and to. Shouldn't be a problem.
Do you think they actually have it?
Do they have the information? Oh, yeah.
So they know.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. I want to.
Very likely they just can't find it. They just can't find it. That's all.
Oh, expound on that for a moment for us, please.
Well, it's the problem of having too much information. It's hard to see what's really important in it because what you do is make yourself dysfunctional by burying yourself in so much information you can't see what's happening or what it means. You can't even understand it. That's the problem. See, a lot of people like Clapper and Brennan, they go around talking about we need to collect more because it's more intelligence. It's not intelligence until you understand what that collection means and then can interpret any threats or threats by various possible enemies. So until you do that and understand it, it's not intelligence. It's just data.
And there's so much of it that you need to be able to pinpoint it and pull it out, which is what you specialize in because they are your programs, so you know them. That's really interesting. Now, I want to focus in on some facts that you have brought to light, and they have enormous relevance for the people of our country. First of all, you have proven without any doubt at all that the claim that Russia hacked into the DNC did not happen and that it was logistically impossible because of the nature of the data. And you also proved that the information had to be downloaded onto a flash drive directly from their computers inside their offices, which is remarkable. You also tried to present this information in defense of General Michael Flynn, but you were blocked from doing so, which is extraordinary. Both of these matters are amazing, and I'd like you to break down how you proved that the outside hacking could not and did not take place.
Well, when you deal with it, where there were two issues involved. One was the Guccifer 2 material related to Guccifer 2.0, and the other was the DNC emails. Those were two separate sets of emails. One was the posted by WikiLeaks, and the other was not. It was posted by Guccifer2. So when you looked at just the WikiLeaks publications of the DNC emails, there's 35,813 emails. All of them had a last modified time rounded off to the nearest even second, which meant very simply put, a FAT file formatting process was run. A file allocation table formatting, that's where you have a program read data onto a storage device like a CD-ROM or a thumb drive. And then at that point, then it's physically transported wherever it goes. So that's what the evidence of the posted emails by WikiLeaks are. The DNC ones came down in 3 batches, one the 25th and one the 23rd of May, and then one on the 26th of August. All of those had the FAT file format evident in the last modified times. But none of the Podesta emails did. All the Podesta emails posted by WikiLeaks were odd and even ending last modified time. So that was clearly a hack. But the DNC was not a hack. It was a download to a thumb drive or a CD-ROM and then physically transported to WikiLeaks before they published it.
Okay. And
so that's that one.
Right. And you actually pulled together a group of some of the best hackers in the world, put them around the globe to just make sure that what you were thinking was correct, that it could not be done. I want to
we also had multiple people working with us to do this analysis of this data, some in England and some over here in the US. And when it came to doing the Guccifer2 data, that was posted by Guccifer2, I worked out with Duncan Campbell in the UK, and we've calculated all the transfer speeds of data that Guccifer2 presented. So in other words, Guccifer2 presented an item name, a database or data set, and the number of characters in it, and then a timestamp. Then the next data file, a number of characters, and a timestamp, next file, and so on. So all you had to do was difference the times and see the numbers of characters between the times, and you then could calculate the transfer rate. Okay. So when you did that, the highest rate transfer that we had was 49.1 megabytes per second. Now that's bytes, not bits. That means 49.1 million characters per second. And we knew that that could not go across the web. And so some of our people in VIPs even asserted that they thought it could. And we said, well, you're confusing a download with a network transfer, you know? So that was the whole point of it too, by the way. So we said, okay, we will try to transfer this data to Europe from the United States. So we had a friend here put out a gigabit of data on a data set, and we had some hacker friends in Europe go around trying to draw it across from various points, like in Serbia and also in Albania, and a couple places in Netherlands, and then a data center in the UK and London. And the fastest we got a transfer was 12 megabytes per second, which is a little less than 1/4 the necessary rate to transfer the fastest rate downloaded from by Guccifer2. So we knew that didn't go across the web, and we so asserted that. There's a couple other things that happened too. The Guccifer2 data on the 5th of July of 2016 and the second set of data he put out on the 1st of September merged together like shuffling a deck of cards without conflict. So that meant that Guccifer2 made one download, split it into 2 parts, and claimed he had two different downloads or hacks. Now that to me is falsifying evidence. So he's playing with the data and he's playing with us. Now we had some further evidence of that. Some of our guys in the UK looked at the data, and they found 5 emails that Guccifer2 put out on the 15th of June. You know, remember the ones with the Russian fingerprints, right? Cyrillic characters in the name of a Russian spy, right? Well, when you looked at that, they found 5 of those emails in the Podesta emails, but published by WikiLeaks. except the publications by WikiLeaks did not have the Russian fingerprints. So that meant Guccifer 2 was inserting the Russian fingerprints into the files that he was claiming to have hacked. But actually, he downloaded all of them, probably. So in this case, though, that harkened back, and it points back to a CIA program exposed in Vault 7 called Marble Framework. That program can let the CIA hack somebody and make it look like somebody else did the hack. And the options are Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and some Arabic country. So that meant, to us anyway, that the fingers is pointing back to CIA as the origin of Guccifer 2 and the use of the Marble Framework one time in 2016, and we probably are looking at it with Guccifer 2. And that is also stated in the Vault 7 material, that they used the Marble Framework program one time in 2016. And so we are saying the fingers are pointing right back at CIA as being the origin of Guccifer 2. So CIA under Brennan was fabricating all of this, is what we're saying. The implication is there. The evidence is pointing right back at them.
It's so incredible. And the reason I had to go through that for everyone, and everyone's probably, their eyes are glazing over at this moment in time. Like, what? But I want everyone to really absorb. Bill is an expert hacker. And as I mentioned, he's the best to this day. His reputation is the best the NSA has ever known. And he created the programs they use right now. The extent to which he went to bring in a team, a global team, and go through this in detail took a lot of time, a lot of effort. He's absolutely certain of his findings, and it's extraordinary, and it's extremely relevant because it's been proven to be an impossible falsehood that took up much of President Trump's first term in office. Yeah. And that's the problem here. It's been such a costly betrayal of trust. And many Americans, Bill, still cannot believe that they were lied to. They still believe, right? Right? This is the problem.
I have another point here also.
Yes.
In the disclosed secret testimony of Sean Henry, the former CEO of CrowdStrike, when he actually testified under oath, instead of saying the Russians hacked, he said they had no evidence that anybody exfiltrated the data at all. Which means, his public statement was totally in contradiction to what he said under testimony in the House Intelligence Committee. So that was the stuff that was just released by the DNI. If you go look at Sean Henry's testimony there, he said that we had no evidence that they actually exfiltrated the data.
So what you're saying is under oath, he said we have no evidence, but publicly, while he was out speaking to the American citizens, he said the opposite.
Yeah, I think it was the 12th of July of 2016.
You're so exact. At 2 p.m. at 2:06. Yes.
I don't have that. That was the 14th of June. I'm sorry.
14th of June. I'm telling you, it's because, Bill, it's extraordinary to believe that still 50% of the American citizens still believe that there was some kind of Russian hack that went on. And the reason they believe it is that they can't believe that they were truly lied to and they were played by the entire media, by politicians they trust, by corporations they trust, which own the media. It's very, very hard for citizens of America to believe that our entire country was played in a despicable, dishonorable game. And it was only to discredit people they didn't like in office. And therefore, the entire American public had to go through this for years. Why do you believe that they were, and some people still are, out to get General Flynn? And who specifically is behind it?
This is basically what I told Pompeo when I was interviewed by him back in November of 2017. he asked me who was behind all of this. And I said, well, look at who's involved. The CIA, NSA, the FBI, the DOJ, the State Department, the DHS. Where do they all come to a point? Where is the only common controlling point? And that's the White House. To me, that means that the White House ordered this charade to be executed, and my belief is that CIA managed the execution of it. And by the way, CIA, according to Casey, back when the early 1980s, he said that we are infiltrating the media, and you'll know that we've succeeded when virtually everything, or at least 70% of what is believed by the American public is false. That was straight from Casey, the former director of Central Intelligence back in the Reagan years, in the early 80s.
That's a quote from him.
Yeah, and now you can see the effect of that is what we've got today. He was the director of CIA under Ronald Reagan's first term.
Wow. Bill, turning to the topic of the NSA, please tell everyone what your title was there and what specifically you did.
Well, I was at various titles, for over 36 years there. I was in the military for the first 4, but then as a civilian for the last 32. And I started out basically as an analyst in Russia and the Warsaw Pact. And so that I stayed with that for about most of 30 years. And I eventually became the technical director of the area of the Warsaw Pact in Russia, Soviet Union. And then eventually from there, I went to be the technical director of what I like to call the world. I thought that was a good title, technical director of the world. But at any rate, it had about 6,000 analysts. They were analyzing and reporting on the entire world, the geopolitical, military, and governmental analysis and reporting of the world. So, my primary job was to look at, things, the technical problems in the world, and see how to solve them to help us in our job as reporting and understanding what was happening in the world, recognizing threats and so on. And so I worked on things like codes and ciphers and data systems and data per se, and always bits and numbers and letters and bytes, So I had a lot of fun doing that.
As a mathematician.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you are the man who created the programs that the NSA still uses today, which is remarkable. They were created.
Very little modification, too, according to the 2009 IG report from NSA's report, and very little from the Snowden materials has changed at all.
Very little has changed at all in all that time.
Right. That's why I put the affidavits in the General Flynn case and in the Roger Stone case, saying that I was quite prepared to testify to how this was all a fake because I knew all these programs and I could testify to them. That's also why I put an affidavit in support of the lawsuit against the United States government for spying on every U.S. citizen in the country, violating the First, Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments of the Constitution. And I knew exactly the programs and how they did it. And I was assembling evidence over time, which I had assembled against the government and to prove that exactly what they're doing. And this lawsuit is being stymied by some of the judges in the Third Circuit, but we're moving forward to an appeal to the Supreme Court. And that's really where it needs to go.
Right. And I want everybody to be able to absorb the magnitude of this. You actually created these programs, and they were done so, again, with the intention of spying on foreign enemy governments. They were never intended to spy on citizens, either in America or anywhere else around the world. I want you to explain who specifically turned these programs into spying on citizens in our own country and the rest of the planet.
Well, also, I should add that there were protections built into the software of the programs we developed to ensure privacy of people, not just in the United States, but also around the world. And it came around like we had several things, like right up front, we had a filtering program. So that program had targets of interest and rules that restricted the use of that information in selecting other material in the network. Like, for example, you would have to be in direct communications with somebody that was a terrorist, for example, before your data would be taken in. Or you would have to be within 2 hops of that, not going through. This was the restriction that Obama didn't add to the 2014 January restriction on NSA collection of data. We had a restriction that said you cannot use the second hop to go through a company or a department of government. For example, let's take an extreme case, Google. That would mean that under Obama's rule, they could go look at somebody who contacted Google and then look at who Google contacted or who contacted Google on the other side, the next hop, and they could spy on everybody, which meant, and that's why NSA was so happy about it, because what that meant was they could use Google and all these other companies to say, well, within 2 hops, we have everybody on the planet. So we are happy, we can spy on everybody. And so, but if you put the restriction we put in for him in place, then you couldn't do that. And that's what we did with our program, so that it only looked at things that you had warrants or had valid information to show that they were terrorists or something like that. And then we would look only at that information and the rules, going no more than 2 hops. And if you weren't associated or indirectly associated with that bad person, your data was not taken in. And so that meant the vast majority of the world, their data was not taken in. So what that did is reduce the problem of volume in the volume velocity variety problem. It reduced the volume to a manageable set. It also created a rich environment for analysts to actually succeed at seeing threats developing and seeing them coming and being able to alert and stop things. But that was one of the first things they removed. Why? Because our program saw everything. That meant if they removed the filtering, everything would come in on everybody on the planet. And the second thing we had was a program to encrypt the attributes of people who weren't known to be of people of interest or targets that we could justify a warrant for. So in other words, if your data was pulled in along with the associating rules with bad people, then we would encrypt all your attributes, so we'd hide your identity. Even the analysts inside NSA couldn't tell who you were until they could prove that you were involved in the criminal or other kinds of activity, in which case we would then get a warrant and you would be unmasked and then targeted. That was the second thing they removed. So that when they bring everything, now
right, just to nutshell it, these programs had safety measures so
right,
the United States citizens
right,
were safe from this.
Right, and not just U.S. citizens, but everybody on the planet. Because you don't want to take in individuals' data around the world because that's too much data. You're burying your analysts in irrelevant data. Mm-hmm. Right. So we wanted to solve that problem too.
Okay.
And then the final point, if I can.
Yes.
There was a final point that they removed that protection, by the way, so that all the data came in from the filtering. It was no longer filtered. It all came in and all the identities were there and nothing was protected. And then the final one was we audited who came into our network to see who went where, what they did, and what they did with the data. So, for example, if they had our program in place at that time using that audit routine, they could have picked up Edward Snowden pulling out data as he did it. Not, within milliseconds of him doing it. So, but they removed that. Why? Because they didn't want anybody in Congress knowing what they were doing with the information or with money, and because all those money transfers go across the network too, and we would have all of that data there. And they didn't want anybody to know that.
Yeah, this is what's making this very interesting, and I'm going somewhere with this, Bill. I'm sort of laying the ground, right?
Cover up your crimes.
It's very interesting. Sort of laying the groundwork for everyone, who you are, what you know, the specific details of the programs, and what actually happened. I'm going to ask you some time frames. When did the surveillance programs that you created, when exactly were they turned into a situation where everyone was under surveillance? When did that happen?
It actually started in October of 2001. And it was determined, the core people at the decision to do this were Bush the Jr., Cheney, Hayden, and Tenet. Tenet was the director of CIA at the time. Those four made the decision to do that. And Hayden basically made it possible with the programs by removing the filtering and removing the protections under encryption and getting rid of the audit routine to allow that program to run and collect everything on everybody on the planet, including starting first with U.S. citizens.
From October 2001.
Right. And in fact, Mueller, in his interview with Bart Gellman in 2011, before he was initially scheduled to leave the FBI, but it was later extended, he said that he and the FBI had been using the Stellar Wind program since 2001. Well, the Stellar Wind program is the database collection of all U.S. citizens. So all that data collected on U.S. citizens was in this Stellar Wind database. And he basically said that they've been using it since 2001.
And Bill, what was the goal to have every person in the world under surveillance?
It gives you power over everybody, not just individual citizens, but members of Congress, members of parliaments around the world, members of leaders of the world, everything. You get as much data as you can on everybody on the planet. That gives you power over everyone. It's a straightforward totalitarian process, which is why I left NSA and why I kept saying that that's what it is since the beginning of going public in 2011. It's a totalitarian state process. We are moving to a police state.
Okay. When did you leave? When did you leave the NSA?
The last day of October of 2001. When I found out about the spying, I decided I couldn't be a part of it, and so it took me 2 weeks to get out.
Wow, that quick.
Yep.
Now, being the man who created these programs, is it possible to pull out all incriminating evidence against anyone in a very precise manner, as long as they did the communication sort of an electronic way, by telephone, by email? You know, of course, not directly if they did it person to person, but as long as they did it along lines that could be recorded, is that possible to pull out all of that evidence?
It's also to do it person by person, simply by compiling the GPS on people carrying their phones around. You know exactly where they are, so you can begin to associate them that way too. It's called the Treasure Map program. That's a program inside NSA to map where every minute of every day, where any given device is, which also tells you where the person is most of the time. So you can do that way, and you can then map that out with the associations you've developed in the social networks compiled and built by the programs also there.
So, Bill, this is morphing into a very interesting situation, because these spying programs from October 2001 were picking up everything that everybody did and said. And throughout that period of time, it is suspected that some very substantial financial crimes were being committed. For example, on Wall Street, the bankers were thought to have been involved in naked short selling, which is selling shares that do not exist, and in money laundering. But there has never been any proof. So this is a stunning realization that indeed there is proof, if that happened, and that it is being held right now in the NSA programs that you created.
Well, it's in the storage that's associated with them. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. In for example, the Utah facility at at the the 1,000,000 square foot storage facility they built out there. They also have a 600,000 square foot facility built down in San Antonio. And they've got major computer centers and computer buildings here on Fort Meade, and lots of storage at NSA, and also in Denver and various other places around the world. So in a distributed network, they've got a lot more storage than anybody really realizes.
And it's all been stored on everyone since October 2001.
Yep, and actually, and some people even before that.
And some people even before that.
Right.
And I know that you have said that you carry a sense of responsibility over creating the programs that you intended to protect our country, but that were turned and used against the American people. But from what you're saying, there's a very ironic twist to this, because these same programs that were spying on everyone may have been secretly recording some massive criminal behavior, because it is estimated that about $100 trillion that belonged to the American public disappeared on Wall Street.
Well, I mean, it's all of that should be recorded too. All the transfers, everything.
This has, Bill, it has almost a Shakespearean twist to it, because right? Because this massive amount of money that came up missing and left so many people completely devastated with no idea of what happened. So to find out now that all of that activity was being spied on, and these criminals didn't know that they too were being spied on. So what would it take for you to tap into these programs and pull out that information?
Well, you'd start with the social networks built by NSA over the last 10 to 30 years, which all of that is handled and compiled there in form of a graphing routine or graphing programs. And so what you would do is need a seed there, and all you do is use that seed and then pull out all that data and information, which is also indexed to the content in databases. And you could pull out all of that content and immediately start analyzing who's involved in what. And every activity of all humans on the planet is recorded there in that form. So you just pick, what form do you want? Do you want dope smuggling? Do you want money laundering? What do you want? It's all recorded and graphed.
So all of that activity on Wall Street, say in 2008, when all those banks fell and all that money disappeared, everything they were doing is recorded in those programs. It's just a matter of bank transfers. Sorry?
Yeah, it's in the form of bank transfers, account to account, that kind of thing.
So you can go back and find out where all that money went.
Yep.
This is just so stunning as an American citizen, because honestly, we thought, I'm sure the majority of the public thought, that money was just all gone. There was no proof of who did what or where it went or what happened, and it's just gone. But that's not the case.
Nope. No, I mean, the evidence is still there in one form or another, in one department of the U.S. government or another one, or in all of them put together. Maybe they just don't know they've got it because they've got too much data, they can't see it.
So if it's within those programs, and these are the ones that you built, so you know how to pull out that information.
Yeah, the devices they're using to take down and collect data off the fiber network will take down the entire fiber, everything on the fiber. So it's not a question of whether it was banking data, phone calls, emails, chatter, surfing, whatever, the web. All of that's in the fiber, and all of that is taken down by these devices and put into storage. It's just and by the way, there's no dark fiber. All the fiber contains light. All the light is reconstructed into data. So there is no dark fiber. It's just unindexed fiber.
What is dark fiber, Bill?
Well, people refer to dark fiber as things on the web that not people don't know are there. So it's like a dark, they call it the dark web or the dark fiber. It's actually just not indexed by Google or Yahoo or somebody, you know.
But it's in your program.
Yes.
This
because
is
it
just,
still transfers information down by light, and
sorry,
all the light.
Say that one more time.
I said because all of the data, whether you call it dark fiber or not, is transmitted along the fibers in light, in the form of light. And that is all the light is transformed into data and stored. So it's not a question of dark or not dark, it's all stored.
I'm telling you, this is just a stunning revelation. So I'm going to nutshell this one more time just for myself and for everyone else. What you're saying to us is that from October 2001 until now, everything everyone has done has been spied upon and is held within the programs that you created that are still utilized by the NSA, and that you yourself have the power to go in and pull out that information and see what's going on. Bill, would this take years?
No, it was a very short matter of time. As long as you had the seed, that's all you'd need. You know, some indication that one person was involved in an activity, that would be enough.
Oh, the seed meaning the suspicion.
Right. That's right.
Let me ask you this.
Otherwise, we could simply graph all transfers of funds of any significant size or of all sizes. You know, whatever the amount was transferred, we could graph and build a relationship that way, and use software to kind of sort out what looked suspicious and what didn't.
Who would have to bring you in? Would it be the president to actually go in to the programs? Who do you need permission from at this point?
I would think there would have to be a White House directed initiative, because the bureaucrats and all the agencies would resist it in any way they possibly could. This is the way these bureaucrats operate. You know, they make it look they make a problem difficult to achieve, to solve. So you have to anticipate that would be the case, and you'd have to have the power and authority to push them out of the way.
Okay, and so that would be the president.
Yeah.
This is so interesting. Let me ask you a question. Would this also apply to what they're calling Obamagate, where
yes. Yes. And it includes all of the Hillary Clinton emails, everything she sent on the web, everything everybody's done on the web, all chatter across the web, everything.
Wow. And the president being spied on and plotted against.
It's all there.
It's all there. And again, how long would it take? I mean, like if you started tomorrow, what kind of team would you need, and how long would it take to do this?
Well, depending on the magnitude of the problem of what you want to solve, with 10 people, you can do quite a lot. 10 people directed to do the right thing in the right sequence and all. I mean, they could get a lot done.
In how long?
No more than a month.
10 people in 1 month?
Yeah.
Bill, every time you come on this show, it gets more and more stunning. This is amazing. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you would like to add to this particular topic that you're here this
morning? Well, just that, the affidavits, the judges in the courts appear to be trying to keep this information from being testified in federal court. I mean, because once it's in the courts, it's out there in the public, it's in the open, and it's documented. And so in the case of Roger Stone and the case of General Flynn, they didn't seem to appear to care to have the truth about Russiagate read into their court. So to me, that smacks of the court's a part of this process. That just smells that they're involved in this also, and they want to keep it out of sight, out of mind, and that these judges are also involved in that.
It's just so important for the American people as a whole the whole world as a whole, but our country right now is so divided. And again, as I mentioned about, half of our country still thinks that the president is a terrible person and that all of this really happened and he got away with, and then the Wall Street criminality and just the things that have been just despicable happenings, Bill, by people that did it because they were trusted. And that's the truth. And did it because they were trusted. And your revelation that the very programs, again, it's like a Shakespearean twist. The very programs that were taken to be used against everyone and spy on everyone picked up everything, including some things that people didn't realize they were being spied upon doing.
Yeah, that's why they removed the auditing routine on the end of our software so that they couldn't be audited. See, but the information is still there. So all we'd have to do is have that audit routine and then go in and we could do all of this stuff with very little effort.
This is just amazing. Bill, we will have you back on again soon. This has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for coming back on this show today.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Extraordinary Mr. Bill Binney, expert mathematician, former NSA top official, and to this day known as the NSA's best hacker. For the Industry Experts Panel, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.